Hello, my name is Alex. I'm 24 years old. I'm from the South. I'm from Tennessee, but I've lived for the past 6 years in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm an atheist. Um, I wanted to share my story, and maybe there's somebody out there who can relate to it. And if you have any questions, you've come to a really good place with this website. So, my story, my thing is, I'm a writer, and so I write stories, and there has to be a specific story logic going on within the story, or there's no point in writing it. And when I was a little girl growing up in this conservative Southern Baptist home, one of my mother's friends gave her a children's Bible. It was a huge book, and had all these big, pretty pictures in it, and it was, rewritten for my young, tender mind so that I could understand all about Jesus. And I was traumatized by that book because I did read it, and it had illustrations of Noah's Ark, of all these animals dying, and that, the pictures were very vivid, and it just disgusted me as a little girl. I was like, who would drown all these animals? And Samson, when Samson pulled the pillars down on himself, there was a picture of that, and I was like, what the fuck kind of what happy ending is that? That's horrible. And even Jesus, I didn't get it. Even to my little, barely developing mind, none of this made any sense. My mother would tell me that God loved me and that Jesus, was a good guy. But aren't they the same person? Well, yes, they are, but no, they're not. Well, but why did God kill all those animals? If he made all those people, why did he have to kill them? These were questions that my mother just couldn't answer, so she kind of gave up. And when I was 13 or 14, I was just starting high school. Just so you know how conservative this place was that I grew up in, my science teacher, who taught biology, was teaching a chapter out of the biology book about evolution, and he almost lost his job over it. This is a man who had been teaching for years and years, and he himself was Christian, but the school didn't want him teaching science. And I was just appalled by that. I couldn't understand. I was reading this. I was reading the book. It made sense to me. I mean, for some fucking reason, logic makes more sense than, we were put in the garden and a snake talked and some other stuff. And at 15, I was already disgusted with religion, just because, being someone I've read the Bible 4 or 5 times, and I'm a very avid reader, and what I was getting out of it was just hypocrite. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't add up. So many inconsistencies. And most of the people who, really, really believe in the Bible, they're not the people who read all the way through it. They're the people who skip around. One passage is beautiful on its own, but when you put that with the whole rest of the book, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. And at least that's what I thought when I was 15, but I was still in a very strict community. I ended up going through foster care. My teenage years were a living nightmare. I changed high schools 4 times. I had over 17 different foster homes. By the time I was 18, I didn't really know what to think of it anymore. But I was still really quiet about it. I was shy because I felt nobody would accept me. And that was hard for me because, I grew up in Tennessee, and I moved to Utah, to Salt Lake City, which is Mormon capital of the world. And so it was from like one extreme Southern Baptist to another extreme Mormon. And everybody was Mormon, and everybody's mommy and daddy was Mormon, and everybody's brother and sister was Mormon, and their doggies and their cats and their dollies, and every fucking body just knew that Jesus was awesome. And I felt so shitty because I just couldn't devote myself to something that I didn't feel personally was true. And so something really awesome happened when I was 18. I found a friend on the internet who was from Sweden, and he, being in Sweden, which is a very, very, I would say, liberal country, they don't have that stigma that America has about being religious. It's more like if you're religious, you're kind of weird. Like, that's not the norm. And so when we were talking about religion, he straight up asked me, well, are you a Christian? And I was just skirting the issue, which is what I did my whole life. I was like, no. And he was just like, good, because religion's fucking retarded. And that just blew me away. He was so confident about it. It was okay that I was an atheist, and he didn't care. And that really hit home with me. And thanks to the support of somebody like that, I was able to kind of break out and be really vocal about it myself, which is good because by nature I'm a pretty vocal person, and that was the one thing that I never really spoke up about. And it got mixed reviews. My mother still cries and says I'm a terrible person, I'm going to hell, she's never going to see me in the afterlife. That's okay. But it shocked me how many other people feel the same way. They just don't want to say anything about it because it's like this disease, If you say atheist, it's like everything in the room just stops. And it shouldn't be like that. That's stupid. That's so fucking stupid. And so a lot of my friends, I didn't even know they were agnostic or atheist, or, at the very least they had severe problems with the story logic of Christianity the way I did. And I still get into religious debates now and then. I try to avoid them, but nobody's ever going to agree with you all of the time. But the point that I want to make is you need to speak up. Not only for yourself, because it's going to make you feel so much better. You're going to feel so empowered. But there may be other people that need you to speak up. I needed somebody to speak up. I was a pussy. And luckily I had somebody who was not only atheist, but a confident atheist that really taught me it's a part of who you are, and it's a great part of who you are. There are so many religious discussions, that I've had that have been just wonderful. It makes you feel like you are not the only person who feels the way you feel. And I know it's easy to feel like that, especially if you grow up in these conservative places. Don't ever feel bad. Don't ever feel like you're burdening other people. I mean, even if it is, you could come from a really religious family and they may think you're terrible, but look at it this way. They, whether it's Jewish, Muslim, Christian, whatever, they have to use a book to tell them their guidelines for life. You don't have to do that. And, when they give to charity, God is praising them and they're all warm inside. When you give to charity, it's charitable because nobody fucking knows. I mean, the people you're helping or whatever it is you're doing, they'll be appreciative, and that's all you need. You don't need God to tell you to be charitable. A creator that, as Gene Roddenberry says, makes faulty humans and then blames them for his mistakes. There's absolutely no reason why you should feel any obligation to do things because of a book or because of what your mom and dad believe or your grandma and grandpa or whoever it is that's you know, don't let yourself hold yourself back, and just think of all the other people too that may need this feeling that it's okay to be that way, and just know that everything that you're doing it's great, it's awesome, because again, it's so easy to have that crutch of religion. It's so easy to be like, oh, it's in God's hands now, or oh, everything happens for a reason, or even though things are bad right now, things are going to be great in heaven. Like, what the fuck? Seriously? Are you not an adult? Take some responsibility for yourself. Don't blame Satan for tempting you. When you're an atheist, oh man, it's just, if you're gonna follow a book and like be religious about a book, make it a good book. The Bible's not a good book. The Bible's a terrible book. The Book of Mormon's a bad book too. I've read that one too, obviously. They're just not good books. Like, go read Grimm's fairy tales and have that be your religion or something. I mean, the morals in those stories are better than the ones in religion. The point that I'm making is that it's okay. You always have a family, even if it's, virtual family in some cases, no matter where you are. There's probably an atheist meetup somewhere nearby. There are tons of them in Salt Lake City. And you don't have to go through this alone, but you're going through it without a god or gods, and that is something that you should be proud of. And that's all I really wanted to say. And I hope that whatever you decide, whatever decisions that you make them count. Make them come from your heart. And that's Elvis laughing, which means I have to go.